That man, look, he's not swaggy right now. This is crazy, man.
Because he's Jeff, man.
It's a real swaggy look, bro.
Okay, I only checked in really quickly. Yes, I don't know if you're busy to do that. No, you're doing it already anyway, guys. No, you're fine. Okay, cool. I was making sure you're going to post the right link on our Twitter.
You read everything like 7 minutes after it's been sent, bro.
Oh, sorry for having a live. My goodness.
A proper div.
What's that, Jeff?
Nothing. Sorry, bro.
All right, guys, we're actually live now, yeah? So let's be on our best.
No. You guys are all good. You're all good. Take care.
Let's be on our best behavior, yeah? Yes, I'm gonna post a link to you in the group chat, yeah?
Sinner.
Cool. Calm. Okay. Everybody ready? Everybody feeling good, yeah?
Yeah. Everyone do their breathing.
Yeah. How do I sound, Si? Is that all right, yeah? Am I all right for you?
Yeah, man, you're good.
Just holding up, just about, yeah? When you see my screen go black, take over the hosting, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah, we can talk about the matchups. We can talk about the fact that everyone's waxing lyrical about how great Miami are as an organization. But about a year ago, they were in the shitter. They had a bunch of bad contracts, and they were, like, heading nowhere fast. And obviously, Portland came and took Whiteside off their hands. They got Jimmy. Iguodala decided he did not want to be
it's not as linear as that. You make it sound way less calculated than it seems like it was, in my opinion.
I mean, I don't think it was calculated. I think they didn't specifically tank, but they just tried to try and compete and make smart moves. And obviously, paying Whiteside $100 million wasn't smart.
Whiteside, Tyler Johnson.
Tyler Johnson. I understand why they gave him that money. That $40 million on the market at the time wasn't that much. So I get why they gave him that. So they kind of went the smart.
And it was a movable contract as well.
Yeah, it was an easy to move contract.
To be fair to him though, he had a lot of suitors. They basically ended up paying him that because of the fact that they wanted to keep him and they didn't really have too many options.
Jeff, you Brick squad.
Brooklyn wanted him.
Yeah, that's Jeff.
What are you on Twitter?
Source Castillo with the 3 L's. Let me put it in the group.
It was that international Ifatunde, yeah. Okay.
Dr. Umar, but that's not really. Sorry.
Yeah, I think.
Shoot. I haven't changed that in ages.
I agree. Friday kind of locked out, especially with the draft in the last couple of years.
Yeah. I mean,
it's luck because he doesn't really care about the draft anyway, bro. So
exactly. So it was never in their interest to tank anyway.
Cool. So I'm gonna start recording now, guys. So 3, 2, 1.
We going out now.
Good evening and welcome to Courtside Fracas and our finals preview pod. Gonna go around and introduce the guys, but you should know most of us by now. Got Sai with a throwback Spo in the background. How you doing, Sai?
Good, man. I got to represent for the nerdy man.
Yeah. Kay, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Live and direct.
Yeah, is that a throwback Raptors jersey?
You know the vibes. Tracy.
Doing it right. Yes. Our defeated Yes. How you doing, brother?
Boy, listen. The only thing making me feel better about this defeat is I bought my first golf clubs today, so I'm on my journey to rich man shit. I feel like I fully just did it because rich people do it, and it's like maybe I could just go backwards and do it that way. But I'm still hurting, bro. It hurts more because we're actually like I deeped it. I rewatched some of the games. We're actually better than them. Like it's fucked up. We're actually better, and we fucked up. It's peak. It's peak.
Yeah.
I'll agree, but we'll get to that.
And
you know what? Yeah. We'll get to that. We're gonna do a whole next thing in the off season, Jeff, and I want you to be there, mate. I feel like you really add something to
that. All right, cool. Send them on.
And we got Jeff. How you doing, Jeff?
All good, brother.
Good.
Jeff, that's what to the courtside world, you know. And you're there.
Oh, man's warming up for when Lotus opens again. I love it.
I'm waiting, bro.
Cool. So let's get into it. It's a few hours before game 1 of the NBA Finals. On the East, we got Miami who've come through their conference impressively. And then on the West, we've got the Lakers. I mean, it's LeBron James, man. He's been to the finals. Only two people have been to the finals more than him. It's probably two of those Celtics that played with Bill. What's his name? Bill Russell? Yeah, two of the guys who played with Bill Russell. So yeah, I mean, going in, I feel pretty much that everyone's favorite is the Lakers. But despite that, we all know that basketball doesn't quite work like that. And in Eric Spoelstra, Miami probably have pound for pound the best coach in the league, if not the best, top 2, top 3 coach in the league. So anywhere there is a gap to be exploited, he will be trying to exploit it. And we also know that on the Lakers side, that after the top heavy LeBron and AD, that the quality on the roster kind of declines pretty rapidly. So there is opportunities there for Miami if they're able to execute correctly. So I'll start with you, Jeff. Obviously, you're here as part. Are you a Lakers fan again? Are you not? Because you were a Lakers fan.
No,
then
are you asking?
I'm not sure. I'm genuinely not sure.
Don't say you're not sure. You asked me several times. I told you I'm not.
Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar, Jeff was a Lakers fan and decided to kick rocks when LeBron came. Something to do with the young core, which we'll get into. Something to do with the young core. Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball.
A bum core. Kyle Kuzma, the influencer. And then who we got?
Ingram. Don't forget Ingram.
How much big baller brand clothes do you own, Jeff, to be that invested?
You know what? I nearly spent like £500 on something, and I didn't get it in the end.
Big baller brand. Even Lonzo don't rep them no more. He tattooed over that mess.
Did you receive the shoes? That's the important question.
I didn't even order them. That's the important answer.
Just for anyone who listens like regularly. Just a quick one. For anyone who listens regularly and like thinks that Harold, like, especially new listeners who aren't used to the whole following player stuff, right? And they're like, who's this Harold guy following a player like that? Like, have a team, bro. Have some principles. Jeff's like the anti-Harold.
Yeah, like, bro.
Too principled to actually stay with the team because of what's come in. Like, love for that.
While I respect it, you're riding with the wrong guys.
Yeah, let's talk about the journey these two teams took to get here. So we'll start with LA. They dispatched a plucky Denver squad pretty handily. I'd say.
Easy.
Yeah, pretty handily. I'd say. I don't think any of us expected anything different. But before Denver, they had the Houston Rockets. Jeff, you were a big fan of the Houston Rockets, and they also had the Portland Trail Blazers. Coming into this finals, you know how it goes. Before they got here, it was like, oh, they got Portland, and then it was, oh, they got Houston, then it was, oh, they got Denver, and now they've beaten all three in a gentleman's sweep. It's like, they didn't really have that tough of a run. But I wanted to go around and ask you guys what you actually thought of how the Lakers dispatched of the West. I'll start with you neutrally, yes, because obviously your interests mainly lie in the East. Looking across to the West too, who the Celtics could have potentially faced. What were your feelings about how the Lakers handled the competition in the West?
Do you know what? I know it sounds like revisionism, yeah. The only one I thought was a real threat to the Lakers was the Rockets, and that was more just stylistically, like, how are they going to handle it? And when you quickly realize, oh, all right, they can handle this, then I've had them as favorites again. I think people are forgetting that beginning of the season, which effectively is this time last year now because of the COVID disruption, there was only 3 people talked about at all. Bucks, Clippers, Lakers. No one else was talked about for the title at all. So if we're keeping that energy, all of these matchups were handy for them. I think Denver are a good side and an underrated side, but Janine made this comment on Sunday that the Clippers tired them out. Like, right, that's a bit of a stretch, but they've had to win how many elimination games in a row? Like, that is exhausting. And I think they just couldn't get over that with LA. Portland, like, snuck in as an 8th. And I think the Lillard bombs just gassed everyone from the bubble a little bit. But can we look past Lillard and McCollum? They've got nothing. So that was an easy matchup in hindsight. The Rockets, like, you realize once the stylistic thing wasn't as much of a mismatch as you realize, then cool. Denver are a good side. I think they did really well to beat Denver. But then that is contextualized by the fact that Denver were like fighting for their life from game 3 of the playoffs, not even round 2. Like Utah was a mad series. Clippers had to come 3-1 down again. I think, but yeah, I think that's what we have to remember is like, okay, cool. For all the bums that are supporting LeBron and AD, the consensus was with those two, they were one of the only 3 people talked about realistically. No one else could talk about. No one else at all. And if anyone says that they did, they were lying.
Cool. Sai, you were rooting for Denver. I think you're tired of the glitz and glamour of LA, and you just want a well-coached underdog team to rise, a team that plays good basketball, good schemes. Actually, their wide open threes actually make a bit of sense and come in the flow rather than being chucked out when the defense collapses on you. What did you think of how LA dealt with Denver?
It wasn't surprising, unfortunately, because of the fact that outside of Murray and Jokic, again, you're asking for Michael Porter Jr. to step up to a level that we've never seen him step up to. And then basically they started the playoffs without Gary Harris. So again, you're asking someone to play themselves into form. So it was a long shot for them. I was surprised they got past the Clippers, to be perfectly honest. So LA Lakers was a step too far for them. It is disappointing for me, just from a basketball purist standpoint. I was hoping that the bubble presented something a little bit different, but the status quo always finds a way to sneak itself back in with the NBA.
Yes, sir, man. Adam Silver's continued the reign that came before him and ensured that he really wanted that Lakers Celtics. He wanted that so.
Some of those trials were crazy, man.
He wanted that so badly, but he couldn't quite get it to happen. And we'll hop back over to the East now, Kay, and I'll get you to talk about somebody other than your Lakers because I'm sure you're going to be waxing lyrical for the next week or so. So, looking at how Miami got through to the finals, they beat the Pacers 4-0. They dealt with the Bucks, and then they dealt with the Celtics. How impressed were you, and how much are you fearing or respecting them ahead of these finals?
The respect is there because, they got rid of Giannis and them, man. But then, like I said, like Yaz was saying, like hindsight's a wonderful thing. Because when you really got into it, even though they were on pace to win 70-odd games, we saw them, no Giannis, and when you can't drive straight through a wall, then what really could they do? I mean, they looked a bit better when he was out the team for those 2 games, but in reality, they dug the hole already. And well and truly, it shows like in the playoffs, even though it's mostly 90% hero ball, that well-coached teams can make their way through. And obviously, they're very, very well balanced. And it just happens to be that their best player, Jimmy Butler, doesn't care about scoring as much. He kind of is just cool, let's win. Whoever's on is on, and I'll do my job. He'll get the ball the last 2 minutes, but he'll be in charge. So they've dispatched the Bucks now. Get to the Celtics, and like I said, they probably should have lost that series, for being honest. I don't know how they got through that. I think that's purely because the Celtics' best 2 players are 23 and 24, and they ain't going to be the ones to carry over just yet. Maybe in the next year, 2 years, and you can't really have Marcus Smart jacking up 22 in an elimination game. Like, he's come a long way, but you're not Puck, so let's just wheel it back a bit and maybe play within your role.
22 shots in that 22 shots in that game, too.
That's nasty basketball. He can't be shooting that many shots.
I know who they prefer to have had 22 shots. Kyrie Irving.
I mean,
before everyone gets onto Smart, Tatum shot 9 of 26.
Oh, we'll get to that. I'm getting to that. I'm getting there. Don't worry. I'm getting there.
Discredit, but the point is that other players took shots that day, didn't make them.
Yeah.
So Smart stepped up throughout the playoffs anyway. So I wouldn't really.
This is the thing, as well with Smart. It's like you look in isolation. He took 22, or something was wrong there, and it's like, but he has games where he takes 10, 15, and he's near 50%. He has those games. He can step up when the offense is faltering, and then just him being that guy opens it up for people like Tatum. But yeah, it is indicative that things ain't working. Yeah. But to be honest, I think that's credit to Miami more than anything. Like I think we fucked the first 2 games, and then they just had the mental ability to just be like, all right, cool, we're not being caught And I think that's the thing which, again, jumping forward a little bit, is going to hold them in such good stead in these finals, is that if they get even an inch, they will take a yard and a mile. And yeah, you can't give them anything because they're so dogged and so, they just play for everything.
Yeah, but between halfway through game 4, their biggest lead of the whole series was like 8. So they're always within biting distance, which I feared was an issue out west with the Lakers in Denver, because obviously they've been on their runs, coming back from 3-1. But yeah, I think Miami are just very, very well coached, and their role players aren't drunkards like the Lakers ones are. So you kind of know what you're getting week in, week out with them. And obviously having Spo is a wonderful thing for them.
Cool. Jeff, Yas mentioned that he thinks the Celtics were better than the Heat. Kay's also mentioned it, but you seem to be more of the opinion that perhaps the Heat are better. So I'd like you to maybe elaborate a bit more on that.
All playoffs long, I was just never sure about the Celtics. I don't know if you don't remember, but I picked the Raptors to beat them in 5. I thought the Raptors were considerably a better team. They shocked me there. But the Heat was always a step too far, not just even in terms of depth, but even if you break it down. Once you go from Tatum and Brown, I still think there's a pretty big drop-off in terms of the next couple best players. Hayward isn't close to what he was about 3-4 years ago, before he signed in Boston. Even before the series started and people saying, oh, if Hayward comes back, etc., I was always of the opinion that, I get it, if he comes back, he gives you 10, 12 a game, it's still something. But within the flow of an actual game, I don't really see Hayward doing too much to actually affect one. And I just never really felt like once you go past Brown and Tatum and Smart and this odd, I wouldn't even call this odd games at this point because it's not fair to him. He's actually a much improved shooter to the point where you can say maybe 1 every 2 games will have a good one. But that's just not going to push you past a team like Miami, which doesn't. One thing about Miami that I like more than anything is that you can go on a run of about 15-2 and they'll just stay steady. They won't let it go. They'll say, all right, cool. We'll just keep plugging away, chugging away. And before you know it, a team like Boston, which relies on one-on-one offense too much, when the shots stop falling and Miami are taking more sort of, smarter shots. I don't know if you lot can still see me. Can you still see me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. They're taking better, smarter shots, just chugging the scoreline along. I just never felt like Celtics had enough over the course of 7 games to consistently beat or outscore the Heat, if you like, with Brown and Tatum having to do much of the scoring. If you're not going to get much out of Smart, off maybe the odd game or
Hello.
Every other game, you're going to get.
There you are.
Fixing his
Oh, wow. This is. Oh, wow. Jeff is in the Matrix. Bullet time. Say that again. So if you're not going to get.
Just a quick one. Yo, Jeff, you said you were like, okay, it was more, the way you're hinting it is you go Brown, Tatum, and then a big drop off behind that. I think without getting too much into the Celtics, I don't want to make this Celtics pod or whatever.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a big thing, but I think the positive for me is that our best things that we're talking about from all these series are the young ones: Rob Williams, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and then the issues were Kemba, Hayward, sort of more older players. The way you're phrasing it is kind of like Celtics lacked, or is it more that Miami just had too much?
So you can look at it from both perspectives, definitely. I think I left out Kemba's name, and it wasn't even deliberate, but it just goes to show that in this series, it was a non-factor. Now, my thing about
Kemba, a.k.a. heart attack Kemba. Go on.
Cardiac Kemba, heart attack Kemba, coronary Kemba. My thing about Kemba and a lot of guys like Kemba is just that he's too small. There was a shot, and I know you've mentioned it before, Mariah, Richard Goodman that we follow on Twitter. He hates small guards, and I hate them myself, not personally anything like that, but there was a particular shot that Duncan Robinson took with about 3 seconds on the clock. It was either in game 6 or game 5, and he was about 5, 6, 7 feet behind the baseline. The 3-point line. And had there been anybody else guarding him, he doesn't even get a shot off because it was about 2 seconds to go. But because it was Kemba, the guy was right underneath him. He's risen up, just put it right over him. And I was like, this is just a perfect example of how.
But it's not even just height. I don't know who said it. someone in the group chat, if you swap Kemba for Kyle Lowry, pretty much same height, Celtics are through. Because at least you can still be effective. And it's not even just the height. Kemba's lost. Like, the guy's never had to defend in his whole career at Charlotte, ever. So he doesn't know how to run, follow evade a screen. He doesn't know how to follow anything. He gets lost all the time. He can't take a charge. The amount of blocking fouls this guy gave away.
He's got so many in that series. Oh, my word.
And he's not going to learn at 28 or 29, if we're being very honest. Like, he is what he is.
It's worse than that, mate. It's 30. It's big 3-0 already.
Oh, he's 30.
30, and it's consistent knee injuries as well. But it's like they lost Kyrie. They lost Kyrie scoring.
But the step backs, though.
He just got targeted. He got targeted throughout that whole series. Like,
in every series, he got targeted, to be honest with you.
But again, going back to Miami, I think that's a good sort of, again, jump off point for when we say they're so well coached. Like, okay, you can always say, this player is maybe vulnerable, this player is maybe going to be an issue, but Miami were relentless in targeting him. Toronto targeted him, but it wasn't to the same degree. They were relentless in targeting him, in targeting the mismatch with Tice and Bam, and even Tice having to come out and guard Olynyk at times. They were smart in kind of who they had on Tatum and Brown, where it still freed up Crowder to go and take on some bigger like they are just so big on matchups. Obviously they're primarily zone, but they know where to get their mismatches. They know who they want to be running out of screens onto who. They're so well orchestrated with that it's beyond theory. It's just like wherever the Lakers have those chinks in the armor, I fully expect them to be able to take them out. Where I see they will struggle is back the other way. But we'll talk about that when we kind of get to the X's and O's and everything like that.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it is a nice segue to the X's and O's, yes. So obviously, Sai, you're our resident X's and O's guy. So as we're talking about how the Lakers and the Heat match up with each other. Game one, how do you expect both teams to set up from the start? Do you expect the Lakers to go big? So we're talking JaVale or Dwight at the center position, and then you've got AD at the power forward, LeBron at the small forward, etc., etc. Do you expect the Lakers to go a bit smaller? But I mean, when they go smaller, it's still AD at the 5. How are you expecting them to come out of the gates?
I expect them to go big. They're going to try and put bodies on Bam and just see how much they can wear him down. Maybe force some foul trouble. It's going to be difficult because of the fact that they are going to play a zone defense. Miami are definitely going to zone on LeBron, just by virtue of Spo having seen how affected he gets by zone defenses in the past. So they are going to throw a lot of different looks at him and try and force him to beat multiple matchups. And the best way to do that is to not immediately switch on screens, but try to funnel him into certain
areas,
one-on-one duels. For me, the most interesting thing is how the Lakers are going to have to try and defend against Miami, though. I don't think there's been another team that they faced who are as active off the ball. We spoke about the Rockets, the most static offense in the NBA, the most hero-centric offense in the NBA. And I feel like that gave the Lakers an opportunity to rest almost and sort of just cheat on certain matchups, whereas they're not going to be able to do that at all. If somebody lapses in judgment just a little bit, maybe a Caruso or a Kuzma, you're just going to see Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero just spinning off of screens and running to their spots and just putting up numbers. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think defensively, I'm more inclined to think that the Heat will be able to do a number on the Lakers, but we shall see.
It's a tricky one because ultimately, as bad as it is to say, it is AD and LeBron, and they are expected to be there. And even though I think a friend of ours was saying, like, Miami were the 5th seed, fine, they've done fantastic in the playoffs, but at the base level, if you look at it, when it comes down to the last few seconds or the last few minutes in finals games, especially all playoff games, more often than not, it's going to one person and it's a high pick and roll, and then they're working off that. even with the zone that Miami are going to probably try and employ. But with LeBron and AD, I think they're going to have to, I think they probably will find a way to obviously combat that. And yeah, like Jeff was saying earlier, you've got to let the others beat you. They're going to try and take Bron off his game, different looks at him. I think AD can probably dice up that zone, just operating from the high post. We'll see what happens with that and what they throw at him. But in terms of the rest of the team, if they're on it, they're on it. And we've seen how off they can be going. I know it's a long way away, but the first game of the playoffs against Portland, that was, if we're being honest, not far off their actual level. Because right now they're playing out their skin. They got the scheme, and the defense kind of pushes the fast break and gets them kind of in their rhythm. Because well and truly, if it just comes down to them trading buckets, I think we're a lot more likely to go stagnant than they are. Because if it's coming from LeBron or AD, we're good. But then if we can't get any momentum in defense, it's going to be a long night. So
or if LeBron goes off the boil like he has, obviously it's LeBron and he's turning it up for the finals, but there's been little clues that
he's not the same man.
He's getting old. It's year 17, man.
The clues are
again, you talk about people in the clutch there a little bit and like, look, last seconds, last moments of a playoff game, whatever. But we have recent evidence this year and last year for Jimmy that he is the man when it matters. And then Bam, with his concrete hand for that Tatum block, is probably the best defensive play I've seen, game winning in recent time as well. So they've got their share as well of players who can make that difference. Obviously, like, listen, they trounced us. I don't care, but there's two things. Number one, episode 1 of this podcast, I was bang on the Heat. Number 2 is fuck LA every time. So I'm all over Miami.
I was so interested to hear what number 2 was.
Yeah, well, number 2 is the priority, really. But I've had a little side thing crush on Miami all year anyway, so I'm fully on them. Besides the fuck LA, I don't care if it'd be fucking Charlotte in the finals. I'll be up for them. But yeah, I think there's a fair share of those players. You look at Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero is not the same guy as in the regular season matchups against LA. Like, this guy has transformed massively over that lockdown break. Just a word on the zone, and you talked about X's O's morale. Someone asked me, like, obviously there's a lot of new listeners to this pod who are not basketball aficionados. Like, people were sort of getting into it and saying, it's good because it keeps me out of it. I got some bridges. Someone was like, what's his fucking zone? What is his zone, bro? All I've heard in the last few Celtics games I watch is his zone. And I think where LA could really hurt them is, I was like, I don't know how to explain this in like one sentence. Someone who don't really watch that. I was like, all right, imagine a wall. You can go around it if you've got the shooters to do it. LA, not really, especially with Danny Bricks. But you can go over it. And I think that's one of the ways where LA are really going to hurt them. There's this lovely little zone with the bigs at the front and the guards fanned out wide and everything like that, which Boston really struggle with. But that's because we have a German who's 6'8", trying to get onto the dunks. And LA have their pick of Howard, LeBron, if he feels springy, even McGee. And I think we're going to see a real, like, kind of, it's going to look old school at times this final.
Yeah, I reckon it's going to be ugly, man.
The Houston excitement this year. I think Lakers are going to go and go bruising. And I think Miami, that'll be a little shock for them because they were bigger than us in our last series, like man for man. We really got some length and stuff, but you got Jason Tatum charging into Bam and Jay Crowder. He's never coming out of that without being flung the other way. So I think it'll be tough for Miami, man. Like, that zone could just get broken straight through with a little drive downhill or just.
I assume.
You'd assume,
the Lakers are going to shred that zone. I watched the 2 regular season matchups they had a couple of days ago, actually. I didn't watch the first one in Miami. I don't know if you don't remember. It was about, I don't know, maybe 10 games into the streak they had at the start of the season. And he played like a Friday night ESPN game that everyone sort of hyped up. And the Lakers just pulled away at the end. They played the second game in LA about a month or 2 afterwards. And Miami started really well. I think they were even up going into the second half. And the Lakers came out and just completely shredded the zone. A lot of it was LeBron at the top of the key and AD in the middle of the in the middle. Like, yeah, exactly. Basically, and it was just a whole lot of mid-range and just, you know, getting into AD, shovel it out to the outside and people making the outside shots. So I agree that the Lakers are going to have to get a lot out of KCP, Rondo, etc. But the same way you mentioned, the likes of Tyler Hero and what have you, they're not the same players they were months ago, Yasin. That can actually go for Caldwell Pope. It can go for Rondo. It can go for all of these guys who are fully contributing. They're no longer the bums they were 3-4 months ago. Are the Lakers going to be able to sort of carry this two-man game through? And even if they do happen to, I think the Miami zone is the perfect defense if Miami try and do too much of it anyway, for the Lakers to actually beat them with just two guys. Like, a lot of it will be LeBron and AD, and let's just not pick him up, sorry, but, you know, get into AD. And like I said in the group earlier, AD will beat you 4 times with the mid-range. Like, it will pass the point of, you know, like what we're saying with the Lakers shooters right now. If they beat you in the series, so be it. You know, people who say that about AD, well, not say it, but like, I'm sure there was a point in which people said, don't let LeBron beat you. But if AD beats you with the mid-range 4 times, so be it. I think we're past that point now. You have to actively stop him to the point where you try and stop him first. Because Miami have the bodies to throw at LeBron. You can throw a bit of the corpse of Iggy. You can throw Butler. You can throw Crowder.
Okay, interesting. So you say you can throw Crowder, but I feel like they may want to put Crowder on AD just because if you put Bam on AD, Bam could easily just pick up 2 early fouls and then you know
they're gonna put Crowder on AD for sure. Try and avoid Bam getting into foul trouble, because that will be the Lakers sort of if you like, that will be their what they try to hone in on, which is Bam makes that team go. So if you get him 3 fouls, you know, towards the end of the first half, you completely change how he plays, Miami play in general, and you basically force them to become more of like a team that doesn't go through Bam as much. And to be honest with you, going through Bam actually is what makes them the team they are. So if you take that away from him and, you know, stop him from being the focal team on both ends of the court, then you just make the series so much easier. But so they'll definitely put a lot of Crowder on AD. I think
the other thing you mentioned, Jeff, the regular season. Like, this is one thing which people ain't really factored in when talking about Miami in the playoffs. Like, Crowder and Iguodala are mad additions, which is good, but they don't have someone to replicate what Bam does. They just don't. They don't have another big they can throw in to do the same thing. So they just don't.
I actually thought they might, as crazy as it sounds, might try and play a bit of in these finals. You'll don't be shocked if you see it a couple of times, only because they're going to try and do as much as they can to try and stop Bam from getting into.
But that guy's been waving a towel for like a month, more.
I know. He's not warm. So is Solomon Hill. I hadn't even the ghost of Solomon Hill the other day nearly shocked me out of my sock, bro.
Mate, they can smell him, but he ain't playing. I can smell him on the side of the court, but he ain't playing.
He pump faked somebody. He pump faked somebody. And I was just thinking, what made you think he was gonna shoot?
What made you think? What do you think he was gonna bite, son?
Honestly,
the maddest thing is he got 1 rebound and then posed with the trophy afterwards. I was like,
another thing as well.
But you know, Spo will do that. Like, when it comes down to it, he will try and switch it up. And I just won't be shocked if, you know, Bam has one of those games, especially in the course of the series, where maybe he has foul trouble super early, and you just see Leonard checking for even 3 to 4 minutes. He can still play. He was fully part of their rotation. It's only really been the playoffs that he hasn't been part of it at all. I think he came into it injured. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see, even if it's just 2-3 minutes, just to try and maybe get Bam either some rest or to avoid trying to get him into any more foul trouble, depending on how the refs call it as well. I think you don't be surprised if early on you see LeBron, AD, you know, chirping to the refs on the sidelines and what have you, just trying to get them to understand, you know, because Miami will understand that the only way in which they can win this series is to be physical. Try and match the Lakers physical, because the Lakers are going to come up and say, yo, you guys thought, you know, Boston, you're the bullies of the East. It's different over here, mate. Like, we're the real big boys. So, you know, Miami going to try and double up on their own physicality. So, yeah, you guys are right. It might even be a proper ugly series. Proper looking forward to it. But, yeah, I think the Lakers, should have way too much, I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, you say way too much, but I think if they cancel each other out physically, Lakers are bigger. I hear that. If the Heat catch fire, they're off. They're
That's
off.
what I'm scared of, and that's actually.
Thing. But you're living and dying by the free and all that sort of stuff, and you can go hot, go cold, and all that sort of stuff. Like I've got it here in terms of like three pointers made. Like there was a real story of the series against us. So they found it again and got 14 in game 6, but a lot of them came late where Celtics had kind of died off. But they started hot yet, 16, 14. Then it's 12, then it's 10, then it's 7 as they're waning.
Bro, so that's what I genuinely fear about Miami. I feel like Kanye actually mentioned that he feels like the Lakers are more likely to score. That the Miami are more likely to score consistently. I actually disagree. They have plenty of periods in which I think if Boston had more, if Boston had the third scorer in this series, and that's why I don't think you guys were better. If Boston had the third scorer in this series, who was actually somewhat consistent, they were the one that series in 6. Because I agree, it was there for you. There were about 4 games in that series of 6 where you could say Boston legitimately could have won that game, especially if they had somebody who was a bit more consistent so far as the first scoring option is concerned. Miami don't really have that. You can watch Miami and they can very, very consistently, over the course of a series, have big scoring droughts. And against the Lakers, I promise you, if the Lakers go up 10, 12, I understand that basketball is a game of runs, but especially finals where I think things are proper going to slow down. If one team ends up building a lead of 10, 15 at any point in any game, I think the other team will become very, very, very hampered so far as winning that game is concerned. And I think it's more likely to happen to Miami over the course of a series consistently enough than it will happen to the Lakers. They will consistently score, I think.
Can I just say, Jeff's making all these good points, and I'm looking at him, taking him seriously in these fucking sunglasses.
Yeah, don't let Jeff's appearance. Don't let Jeff's appearance.
What am I looking at
Don't
here?
let his appearance fool you. He knows what he's talking about for real.
First and foremost, I told you that respect it right now, okay?
Okay, cool. This is not cool.
Have you watched Uncut Gems before?
Yes, we have.
I'm the black version.
Oh, all right.
That's not a good
On
thing.
Jeff's point, though, in terms of runs and things of that nature, we saw in the OKC versus Rockets series that when Houston were able to build up leads, it was quite difficult for OKC to execute and keep it close. But in the games where they did manage to keep their execution up and basically just score consistently, when it got down the stretch and they started to play hero ball, when Rockets started playing hero ball, it was very easy for OKC to just execute and sort of keep the games close enough to win it in clutch moments.
Yeah.
I think we'll be seeing something similar to that in this series. We saw against the Celtics, again, as much as a lot of people were saying that the Celtics were the better team, I feel like Miami have it in them to basically say to themselves, if we keep it close and we get it to the last 2 minutes, we know the frailties in that team.
We trust ourselves to execute over us trusting them to execute. Yeah,
precisely. It's a team DNA thing. Is when it's grit and grind and effort, you always bet on yourself to be able to get a game changing or momentum changing steal or block or even just a big shot. And we saw multiple guys showcase their ability to step up in those immediate moments and then someone else pick up from them and then playing team basketball to get them over the line. So I do expect them to be able to do that in this series too.
Weirdly enough, I expect that from the Lakers as well. You say that, but we were saying before how maybe if the Celtics didn't have that third player, maybe to help push them over, but the 2 main guys were 23 and 24. I know I joke, but the average age of the Lakers is 40, more or less. So the mentality is very much different because well and truly, when it probably comes down to it, there'll be as many old heads on the court. Obviously, you got Bron and AD, but Rondo will probably be on the court as well with him.
Did you see the Rondo quote, Kanyen, recently?
What did he?
I think it's on your point here, which is it's a sick quote just to back it up. I don't mean to cut you, but he was basically like, this guy came in and won a chip in his second year. And then that's 2008. And then by 2012, the guy was hurtling. So 2013, the guy's career was just spiraling, right? And he's like some shit years, some dead years. And he was just like, he's just been telling Kuzma, he's been telling Caruso, he's been telling all these younger lot, he's like, yeah, listen, this doesn't always come around. like, you need to actually appreciate right now where you are, that you're in a finals, because like that Celtics team could have made 4 finals. They made 2, and they got 1. Like, sorry, they made 3, got 1. Bruv, like, they don't come around every day. They don't come around. And I think that's where Miami have that grit, but Lakers have, like you said, that veteran leadership to just maybe calm things a bit.
Like, I hate on him. He's won a chip with the Spurs and been a big part of that. Won a chip with Toronto, been a fairly contributing member of that. So they've got people like that have been there. Obviously, JaVale, we laugh at him, but he's a 2-time winner.
Mm-hmm.
He's been on the court in these big moments.
We're past the point of McGee can't play. He can play. He can contribute.
But even I'm just saying, like, the age, and obviously these men have been in these positions before. Like, I'm not saying that Miami are going to be like a deer in the headlight or whatever, and maybe fail to execute down the line. But I feel when it comes down to it, Miami's execution is very much a team-based thing, and if it comes down to the hero ball, it can probably be quite disjointed at times when it goes to Jimmy and maybe Dragic, because you don't really want Dragic in the last minute just throwing out some stuff and hoping for the best. But when it comes down to it, you
know what? I know you don't, but Dragic in that Celtics.
I hear that. But it's very different, be it the ball being in Dragic's hand in the last 2 minutes compared to other options. It could be in Rondo's hand, waiting for LeBron to get it. AD, you've got countless old heads there who can probably calm it down towards the very end and, let's say, execute to a much higher level than I think maybe Miami can, even though their system and the propensity is we could maybe quite be outcoached by Miami. But I do think the quality in certain areas and obviously the experience might probably push us over the edge and maybe 5-6.
Cool. We've got a question from one of our listeners, Anik. He's asked about how crucial Butler versus James Butler versus James will be in this series. Obviously, Jimmy Butler is very much painted as the face of Miami. Obviously, we've spoken, and you say Bam's the one who really makes them go, but you know Jimmy gets the ball at the end of the game. Him coming over in free agency was probably the key catalyst to adding everything to what they had through the draft, etc., etc., etc. And obviously LeBron James is LeBron James. I've gone back and watched that last few minutes against them. I watched it about 5 times on Sunday, and I've watched it probably about 5 times since. So let's talk about how the two key men, you could say, match up with each other. And I'll come to you, Sai. Just to get your thoughts about how Butler and James match up.
So they've actually faced each other a hell of a lot of times in head-to-heads in the playoffs. So they played 11 games total against each other, which is a fair few. Jimmy Butler, quite early in his career, played some of the best defense I've ever seen on LeBron in terms of just slowing him down, disrupting his rhythm, and sort of forcing him to do things that he wasn't necessarily comfortable.
We haven't got his name even.
Yeah, exactly. So for where their trajectory has gone, I do feel like they're sort of going to meet at a bit more of a center point now. LeBron isn't going to be forced into situations where he just has to beat him off the dribble as much. He's a lot savvier than he was at the point where they sort of matched up. And obviously with AD there, he always has an option to delegate, if you will. For me, I really struggle to see how Butler doesn't get the better of this matchup, though. As odd as it sounds.
There's a real gasp of air. There was a real inhale from the Lakers fan there.
Not just the Lakers fan, boy. I saw Jeff step back. And I was like, all right. Talk to us, Si.
It's one of those things, like as we've mentioned already, Jimmy Butler knows how to position himself as the most vital piece in whatever the team is trying to do. So again, if they keep it close, it's going to be a case where someone has to then stop a fresh Butler on offense. Do you get what I mean? They've got enough bodies to protect him on defense with Crowder, with Iggy, guys that have again shown that they can, at the very least, disrupt LeBron. So what's to say that when the game gets down to crunch time, we don't see Jimmy Butler turn into Jimmy Buckets and really start to enforce itself on the game?
All I see is this.
More than possible.
I don't see it. I don't see it. Because
I don't even know. Not even to be disrespectful at all, bro. But if the matchup is Jimmy versus LeBron, this will be a very short series. Like, it might not.
Very short. I'm sorry, very
You
short.
won't find a bigger Jimmy Butler fan than myself, at least genuinely, in the sense that for the last 5 years, I feel like everything he's said and done in the last 2 or 3 years has been vindicating with this moment here. Back when even Minnesota was the one that really annoyed me, because it was so clear that team just didn't even care. Like, you could watch Towns and you could see he was playing like 50% within himself. Like, he didn't really care. And it annoyed Jimmy. And obviously, as a big Kobe fan, I've hated seeing people get at guys who just really want to win.
Yeah.
And want to win to a point where people look at them as the bad guy, whereas the guys that don't want to win, now that people have watched The Last Dance and heard Michael's little tidbits and heard him say stuff like, oh, if you don't want to win, then don't be here. To me, it's like people are only now really accepting these guys for what they are, which is, you need a guy like that if you're going to win any sort of chip or even get to this point. Yeah. But in saying that, this series can't go down to LeBron versus Jimmy, especially offensively. Oh. If it becomes a matter of who's going to be better defensively, of course, you should give the edge to Jimmy there comfortably. But offensively, I don't know if you watch Jimmy like that. Not to be rude, but
no, he's been
games. He can look like, he can't buy a bucket. Even when you see games certain times when Jimmy gets like 20 points, you'll be like, this was like a slog. Like, he did everything to get to his squad. Like, Jimmy struggled. You'll be watching Jimmy sometimes. It's like, you really struggle for these 20 points. Then there's other times you look at LeBron, 30? You barely even
notice. Barely even notice.
And as well, yeah.
Jimmy works hard for his 21.
I think Jimmy acknowledges that, and he started like getting to the line a lot
more. So
and I think that could be if he's targeting the right people and if he's seeing the right spots and putting some people onto their 4th or their 5th foul, that could be interesting as well.
Yeah, so that's what Jimmy's really good at. Jimmy will come downhill with the ball, realize the guy is on his 4th or 5th foul, whatever. Excuse me, and barrel straight into them and get the foul. So Jimmy's good in foul trouble, probably second to only Harden in the league so far as doing that's concerned. But again, now you're talking about guys with bigger bodies. Now you're talking about getting a whistle against LeBron, getting a whistle in the finals, getting a whistle against the Lakers.
Different proposition.
All of that, like
whistle against the Lakers. Save the best point till last there, Jeff.
It's like Man United at Old Trafford, baby.
Honestly, full time. You put that amalgamation of points into all into one and sort of say, how is Jimmy going to be effective in the series? It's probably not going to be from getting to the line. I've always said, if you leave Jimmy open, it's a bad idea. But at the same time, like, that's not to say he's a knockdown shooter, anything of the sort even. So, I mean, Jimmy's probably going to force himself to, step up and, I need to give the team 20 points. And that might, per game even, and that might actually hurt Miami more than help them. If he allows the ball to just move around and just keeps being who he is, Jimmy Butler, I'm the leader of this team. Everyone knows I'm the alpha dog, but I'm just not going to do too much. The reason I like Jimmy in Miami is because he doesn't do too much, and everyone knows he's the boss there. You see what I'm saying? Like, even the recent stuff with the jersey and what have you, that's him being a leader. But in terms of, like, he doesn't go around screaming, I'm the leader of Miami,
It's
more like just makes the right play every time, man. I think it's the maturity as well.
The maturity of how he plays, even off the court. You can tell Tyler, all of these boys, they look at him as like a big brother. Crowder's come down, he played with him at Marquette, and them two are like the big sort of like the road dogs of the team. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's all perfectly set up for Jimmy, 150%. But it's not set up for them to win if Jimmy's going to be the focal point of that team. He needs to accept that Tyler's a better scorer. Bam's probably more important to the team so far as if Bam plays well, the team plays well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just grew all together as like the main man. I'm still the boss, but you guys are more important to me so far as your roles in our team are concerned. If that happens, Miami have a chance. If it becomes LeBron versus Butler, I promise you, bro.
My point is more so I have faith that Butler will approach the matchup like that.
I'm actually not so sure.
To be the heart of the team more so than
he might try and do too much. He might try and say, all right, cool, I'm here now. It's my first finals. People are looking.
I'm here.
Yeah, Jay Bucket.
I have that worry with LBJ though. Because for me,
I think now, LeBron is so at peace in terms of like his legacy. All he's really doing is sparring with Michael Jordan. But the only thing I feel that drives him is that will and that want to win more and have more stake in that in that conversation. But when I watch how he plays and how he took over at the end of the game against Denver, how he sat there after Houston beat them in game 1, he was just like, all right, okay, cool. I don't see him being denied, man.
Bro, Mariah, let's not gauge LeBron reactions versus Portland. We lost one game against Portland, okay, or Houston. Like, I'm sure every game LeBron is lost in this series, he's in. At no point has he ever thought to himself, "We're gonna lose this series." You see what I'm saying? Like, LeBron, if he loses and LeBron knows that he's under pressure, he's a completely different guy. I've seen.
But
LeBron.
Do you think he comes out of any game in this series thinking, even if they lost game 1, do you think he comes out of it thinking they can beat them?
So this is the one series I feel like, apart from the Clippers, where I genuinely felt like if the Lakers lost game 1, they'd actually be in a dogfight. I thought they'd lose game 1 against Houston. I thought they'd lose game 1 against Portland. And I said both times, I don't know if you remember, Morale, they're losing 5 or they're winning 5. I thought they won both times and win 4 straight. They did that on 2 occasions. Denver, I thought they were going to sweep based on matchups, not based on Denver being a bad team, but just matchups. You got AD on Jokic and basically LeBron switching on to Murray anytime Murray starts heating up. It shuts the whole thing down very quickly. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. The Heat are different. Like I said, obviously, when it comes to the Heat, they're gritty. They're the kind of team that aren't going to allow you to just kind of like blow them away. Even when you're up 10 or 15, they're going to keep chugging away. Do you see where I'm coming from? But in this series, yeah, I just think it's going to be a pretty short series if we look at LeBron and think, oh, how is he going to match up against in all of these other guys? These guys have to match up against LeBron and AD. This is a series about how are the Lakers going to beat the Heat. This is all about what can the Heat do to even win 1 game, 2 games, let alone
on that one, Jeff, because I think, again, Lakers are overwhelming favorites, right? And me and Sai, we did a preview pod for Miami, Boston. I think we both saw it going to 7. We saw it as tight, and we kind of talked about who has the best player in the series. I think I said Jimmy. Sai said Tatum. I think we were both proven wrong in that across the 6 games, Bam came out of it stronger than everybody else. Bam Adebayo came out of it stronger than anybody else. Canyon, as a Laker fan, a still existing Laker fan anyway, because obviously Jeff ain't that invested no more. Who do you fear most on the Heat? That's always an interesting one to me. Like, as a fan, who do you just think, fuck, I don't want this guy with the ball in his hands?
Bam, if I'm being very honest, because I know we were saying it's a Jimmy versus LeBron thing, but I think the most important, like you said, is Bam, because well and truly, he's got arguably the biggest challenge of any of the Heat, because he's got 3 legit big men who are gonna be thrown at him, and not all of them are in their prime. You've got AD, fantastic defender in his own right, but are gonna try and save him on offense most of the time. You've got Dwight, who can throw his body around and can still very much move. And you've got JaVale as well, who's still a very serviceable big man. So he's got 3 very legit matchups in a situation he's never been in before. And so he's got way more of a problem because, like you said, all good things go through Bam. And if he wants to keep it that way, he's going to have to try and, at one point, deal with the semantics of Dwight. And then deal with, obviously, the length of JaVale and AD. And as great as Bam is, we do also remember he's quite undersized for his position. He's more physical than Jokic, of course, but he's very undersized for his position. What's he, like 6'9", 6'8", 6'9" at a push?
He's a big 6'9". He's a big 6'9". But do you know what else people forget
Bam's
about?
A big boy.
It never gets mentioned, by the way, like ever. A couple times, but it never gets mentioned. You've alluded, like you've given us a bailout as a Celtic by saying, yeah, well, Tatum's 22, Brown's 23, rare. Like, Bam Adebayo's like 23 years old.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think the veteran leadership that which is so cliche, is very different on the Celtics than is the Heat. Like, the best player on that team is Jimmy Butler. He might not look it every night. He gets his hard 20, but everyone knows he's the man. If I look at the Celtics, the best player is Tatum. But if I look past that, who would you say is like the man? I know Tatum.
Yeah, I hear that. I guess my point is just, okay, cool. Bam can defer a little bit defensively. Iggy can take over a matchup and be really shrewd with it, and he can defer to Jimmy and Tyler offensively. But he still has a lot on for a 23-year-old who last year was barely even a starter. Like, for half the season, maybe started or something.
I think Spo's something to do with that as well. Like, Brad Stevens has been to conference finals before, but he came up against Ty Lue, but he basically came up against LeBron. That's very different. Whereas Spo has been here 24, maybe 4 years in a row when he was with the Heat. He's been in the finals before. And obviously, the Heat organization is a fantastic organization, very good at developing youth players, of course. So I think his guidance of Bam, of course, along with like their veteran leaders, let's say the Road Dogs, Crowder and Butler, has put them in a much better stead, I think, coming into this than, let's say, the Celtics. But yeah, I think Bam's probably the scariest proposition because well and truly, AD's our best player. He's been playing like the best player. We all know it's whatever's LeBron's team, but we're not going to be here without AD if we're being very honest.
Makes sense.
Butler versus LeBron, in my mind, that's really just in the background, just there.
The X Factor series.
It's AD. It's all AD, and he's got the pressure, like I said, I mentioned last pod. Sorry, that he's got the pressure of saying, "Okay, cool. If I don't perform, LeBron's got no help. Oh, AD again." But at the same time, he's also got that thing that Rondo and LeBron, like you were saying, like, listen, yeah, it's a one-off. You're not many people get here all the time, but listen, I've been here before, so make sure you appreciate this. And worst case, it's not like he's leaning on a nobody. I know it's a 35-year-old LeBron, but worst case, if AD's having a moment, let's say a stretch 4 minutes in the game, he can't hit nothing, he's going maybe 2 or 7 or whatever. LeBron is there. Worst case, he can, let's say, take over, or at least maybe be a more focal point on the offense, because more often than not, AD's touching the ball every single offense at some point. That's a given. Him and LeBron are going to touch it.
Mariah, just a quick one for you. Like, having watched this, obviously, dominated discussion, it's been AD, Bam, Jimmy, LeBron, boom, boom, boom. But there's a lot of other men on the floor who are going to have some say. And you've had Tyler Herro with a breakout game. You've had Caldwell Pope hitting his threes again in these playoffs. You've had Caruso with a big game-changing block. You've had Kuzma getting decent minutes and actually been defending quite effectively. You've had fucking Duncan Robinson torching the Celtics. Outside of the big hitters, who do you think depth-wise has more going for them? Because I think
Miami,
like Jeff said, like, it's become a thing of the Lakers are bums, but really, okay, cool, haha, shit roster, all jokes and that. But really, they've done their thing, like, in these playoffs. A lot of the guys.
They have, but I think
Miami.
if you're looking at the other guys, it's going to be Miami. You've got Tyler Herro, you've got Goran Dragic, and you've got Duncan Robinson. You've got shooters, first of all, which means they can space the floor really well. You've got Tyler Herro, who there's something I was listening to a pod the other day, and somebody mentioned that the gap they had between the bubble and obviously when they last played, it was almost like an off season. And it's almost like these guys have come back and he's not even in his rookie season anymore. He's come back and is in his second season now because skill development, as you all know, players don't really improve so much from playing game in, game out. They mainly develop during the off season where they get to develop skills that they then get to apply throughout the season. So you got Tyler Herro, you got Goran Dragic, man. He's 34, 35 years old, man. And he was carving guys up off the dribble, the angles he works to get into the paint. I think the Lakers are actually overmatched on the perimeter, to be honest with you.
But we've seen that with the other series. We said that with Portland, we've got Dame and CJ, who I don't care twice.
There's two, but Miami got three, and Miami got three guys who can shoot 40%. They can shoot 40% from free. So I think that extra man makes them just that much more of a trickier proposition than any of the teams you faced up to now. Denver had Murray. But then you look outside Murray and you're looking at Jeremy Grant. I need you to
Jeremy Grant doing it.
Michael Porter Jr.
I accept that, but then
Maga Porter Jr. We're looking for you to make some shots. In some games he will, in some games he won't. Yeah. And Houston, you know how it goes. They come and go with Harden. Westbrook obviously wasn't at his best. And beyond that, you got the ghost of Eric Gordon. So I think we should not rule out Miami's
100%. But I don't think the people that Miami have are much better than what we faced, of course. And the thing is, the reigning theme throughout this playoffs, our defense is great. The offense will get by with LeBron and AD. But how will we deal with these three-point shooters? How will we deal with these perimeter guys? And to be fair, I think they've passed the test quite well. And I don't think they're going to see anything, in my mind anyway, bar AD and LeBron. Like, Murray's probably been the best player in these playoffs. If you really think about it, I think personally,
Murray, Jokic,
it'll be him. It'll probably be him from what he was doing, especially in the later rounds, putting them on his back. So I think for him, I don't think they're going to see. They'll probably see maybe a bit more craftiness, probably a bit more off-ball movement. But in terms of like what they've seen in front of them, they've not. I think they'll be fine considering what they've just come from.
For me, though, this is the best defensive team that the Lakers have come up against as well, from top to bottom. So
Very
I
true.
think that for me is the X factor, because the Lakers are going to eat off of transition buckets if they're given a chance to. But Miami can too. They can run if they need to, and they're good in half court. So you've got more ways on offense that I can see the Heat providing a challenge, as well as on defense, they're the best matchup as well. So
yeah, we barely mentioned Tyler Hero, who's obviously had a brilliant playoffs. And I feel like if he has a really good series, then it becomes more of like a 60-40 matchup as opposed to maybe a 75-25, maybe 70-30 if you're feeling generous.
What do you think stops him from having a good series?
To be honest with you, not much. Like, only himself, because none of the Lakers can guard him. I mean, you switch him onto anyone, then he's going to cook him. Buckets aren't that boy's problem. If anything, you just kind of hope that the moment doesn't suck him in. But where they've got no fans around them. Like,
No crowd. That's perfect for them.
And
I guess the only thing would be, could the Lakers put out a 5 where he struggles to really guard anyone? He's not a bad defender, but it's not why he's
Hero's a good defender. So I actually watched it, bro. I've heard people mention that, obviously off ball, I think it happens to all young players. Like, even if you watch tape, they're not great. It's like they have their lapses and what have you, but just 1v1 defending. There was actually a moment in game 5, maybe 6, where he played some ridiculous defense on Kemba. Kemba didn't hit
He's also 6'4", and Kemba's what? 6 foot.
Okay, like, Tyler, you can really defend. Like, I wasn't so sure about you, but you're game with it. You're not Duncan, who is game, but you can see like he's still.
He needs to come out. He needs to come out.
Hero can really defend. He reminds me a little bit of DiVincenzo at the Bucks, actually, when it comes to that. You won't actually think they're defending until you try and get all them one-on-one, and you realize, like, this boy can defend.
Well, yeah, Hero's closing every game at this point, so they clearly trust him to execute like that. But I'm just wondering if, just because Lakers are physically something.
So physically, yeah.
I'm just trying to think. There is a 5, right? So if they were to go 2 big men and then LeBron, and then you got a Kuzma, and then I don't know who that 5th would be that could maybe get something on him. I don't know.
It'd be Rondo, yeah.
But for sure, I agree, especially in the post, and I think a lot of the series will hinge on LeBron being able to get his switches against certain guys. So the main 3 are always going to be Dragic, Hero, and Robinson. If he's able to switch onto those guys consistently within the course of the series, then you expect him to fill up his boots. Just based on size, Dragic ain't going to be able to move. He's much bigger than all 3 of them. But the other 2 in particular just can't guard him. So yes, I do think on switch they're going to try and abuse those guys. But what I don't think is that Hero at any point will be unplayable on D. And what he's going to give you on offense is going to be huge. Like, Miami are going to need that. He's the only guy in the Miami offense that I think can give the ball to and just say, yo, like, get me a bucket. Cool. Like, Dragic can get you a bucket, but it's more crafty. And you're kind of not hoping, because he's going to get the bucket, but it's more crafty. Like, you can give Hero the ball at the top of the key with like 2 seconds to go, not 2 seconds, but 4 or 5 seconds to go and say, bro, like, do something. Like, I haven't seen. So I'm saying, like, he's got that X factor in his offense and the way he shoots, the way he dribbles, wherever it might be, where he can get to his spots and get you that 1v1 type bucket that maybe if you watch Jimmy over the course of a game, you'll see that he struggles a lot more in terms of getting spots because he's not that much of a natural scorer compared to a Hero, whoever it might be. So Hero for me is the X factor for Miami. If he's able to have a good series, even if he has 3 out of 7 good games, I think Miami can potentially win the series. Again, I don't think they have much of a chance, but it genuinely depends on maybe 3 or 4 things. Can Bam have a good series? Can Jimmy have a good series? Can Duncan Robinson have 2 or 3 games?
And can align with one of those games where LeBron's shot isn't necessarily falling. Those layups are banging off the rim. Yeah,
goes for you exactly. If they have enough games where everything goes for them, they have a chance. But they need one consistent in the whole the course of the series, especially scoring wise. it's going to have to be Hero. It's most likely going to be Hero of anyone on that team. You just have to work out if you really trust a 20-year-old to say, it's the NBA Finals, I'm still going to board out.
Just a quick one. If Miami do win, does Pat Riley rip his shirt off and celebrate in LeBron's face, or?
100%.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is an underrated grudge match.
Instagram message similar to what David Griffin did. A couple more expletives, but yeah,
this is an underrated grudge match. Obviously, we
got straight into it, Mariah. We got straight into the matchups. We didn't even talk about just what this means for Miami as a franchise, I think.
Yeah, so in terms of Miami as a franchise, I was hearing you guys at the start. Miami have never faltered as a franchise. Even when LeBron left, I remember they made the playoffs. There's one year they beat Charlotte 4-3. There's a year they got knocked out by Toronto. There's another. They consistently made the playoffs.
They've done it the right way, innit? They've done it the right way.
I think Pat Riley's always gonna know, and people in the league always know, like Miami always gonna be a player for anyone in free agency. So all you have to do is kind of stay competitive, because if there's any team in the league where you can go, you know how Kawhi basically said, all right, cool, the Clippers had like a perfect supporting cast based on what he did last year. Yeah. So let me go there kind of thing. With Miami, anyone's going to watch Miami over the course of the season and say, oh, they're always going to have like 2 or 3 pieces that if they add a superstar, then add 1 or 2 pieces after that, they'll be right in the mix. Like that's how my Pat Riley's set it up for like the last 15 years almost. Like they're always in the mix, or 1 or 2 players away from being a really good team. So even when they were kind of like struggling to make 8th last year or whatever, I still saw loads of signs that they're one guy away. A couple of years ago was Paul George. I remember when Jimmy was first available for trade, before he went to Philly, they wanted him as well. Like they're always
they were aggressive in the Hayward talks actually, and this is again. We've got to remember this is Utah Hayward, so that's a big game changer for someone before the leg break and everything.
I think there's a lot of revisionism around Utah Hayward. Like he was nice, but at the same time,
Utah Hayward was
don't get me wrong, he was nice and get a bucket, but I definitely think, obviously,
I think he was nice, but he was 27, so I think it was assuming he could reach something else. Yeah. I think that was the thing.
I don't think it was unlikely, because he wasn't really standing out in the West full of small forwards, even though he was trying his best, and it was Utah. But
yeah, I think honestly, Jeff, I disagree. I think Miami are lucky. They made some moves. They didn't quite work. Last 5 years, 3 times they didn't qualify for the playoffs. Luckily, Portland took that Hassan Whiteside. That was the real albatross contract. Like, what the hell are you?
Bro, no, come on, man. Hassan
Whiteside, shit, man.
You can definitely move that contract. Someone's going to take.
Because he's a center who can rebound, that can block. Like even if he's really back now, he still led the league in blocks, and I can see why they gave it to him. Like he was 7 foot playing in China for some obscure reason, whatever. Made it back in the league, and I don't know what year it was. Halfway through, all of a sudden, people were like, "Oh God, we've got a player here." And then he continued that for 1 more year. Then he just said, "Here's 100 million. Like be our centerpiece. We'll fix stuff around you." Then they realized.
Okay. Sorry, say that again, sir.
I'm saying DJ Khaled helped him get that contract.
100%.
Hanging out in the jacuzzis and that.
Yeah. I think they're fortunate. Then
and there was a period as well where they had Bosch. Obviously, blood clots took his career away. So as soon as they saw another big man who could block shots and rebound, that's hold on a second, maybe.
But Mariah's point is right. Is that like we talk about these like. Well, Jeff has kind of talked about him, like, it's very calculated and long term, and it's paid off. Look, if you work backwards, this is Miami Misfits, right? You got Hero was good coming out of college, but no one was really expecting him to blow up the playoffs like this year.
I was going to agree on the draft.
Bam, they've really, really done well on the draft. Crowder and Iggy are central pieces to their rotation now. Buyout moves. Jimmy in free agency, game changer, but only a year in. Duncan Robinson, another project. Dragic's cool. He's been knocking about for a little while, but like that, the whole core of their team is kind of out. Kendrick Nunn, who did really well in the season again, like a rookie. Like they've kind of just fallen into this perfect medley of stuff.
Hero and Nunn are 2 anomalies for that, because Nunn, well and truly, should have been a lottery pick if it wasn't for his personal problems. If we're being very honest, he had his little issue at Illinois. There's that, and Hero as well. I think as well, like you probably, obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing, but if we're being very honest, the people that were taken above him, probably a bit more athletic.
So they were discussing that
better than him in the draft at this point in time.
If you watched him under Calipari, with all due respect to Tyler Hero, you would have never assumed he was going to be this. So Pat Riley defo lucked out, and I'll say he lucked out in the draft, and generally does because he doesn't actually care about it. Like when Miami get a gem in the draft, I'm often not too sure how much Riley even had an input in it because he doesn't seem like he cares about the draft. Like, that
so they're more about the free agents, yeah?
More free agency, and just understand that we're at Miami, to be honest with you. Like, we don't have to do too much. Like, build a solid organization and show you that you can come here and both work and play. But they defo lucked out a little bit in terms of Hero because he slid down the draft, I agree. But at the same time, he wasn't anything like he is now.
But we get that with a lot of Kentucky players, though. So I think that shouldn't be taken against him. For example, Devin Booker, no one knew this was going to happen. Like he was.
We've got to be asking questions about John Calipari, to be honest.
I said in the last one about Cat was supposed to be a defensive player. Look at him now.
Come back to what I was saying. You can say what you said you want to say about Hero. However, still massive player development to get him to this point. Bam was they saw Bam. What Bam is doing now in terms of the point forward thing, he wasn't doing in Kentucky. He was a different type of player.
Energy guy, rebounds.
So they've turned him to something else. Again, that's player development. Say what you like, but Duncan Robinson was playing JUCO ball. Like, these are guys that come from the mud. Like, they weren't supposed to pick them up. They brought these guys in, guys like Kendrick Nunn. Yeah, he went undrafted. He was supposed to be a lottery pick, but whatever. They brought these guys in regardless, however. Developed them as players. DJJ, Derek Jones Jr., other guys like that, they brought in, made them into solid cogs in their offense. Guys that are going to be good pieces when it comes to trading them to maybe get another big player in or whatever it might be. And all of that is calculated. You can't necessarily say that. A lot of it's luck, but you make your own luck. And at the same time, building a solid organization basically going to trickle to every corner of it. Do you see what I'm saying? And Riley builds it from the core. And of course, you can tell they've been lucky with a few of their picks.
I think they've been calculated to be competitive, but I don't think they're expecting everything to gel this well this quickly. Like, that was just
of course, he's not a mind reader. I doubt anybody did. Even me personally, when they went on their run at the start of the season, I thought it was going to fizzle out. It's come to this point, and I'm like, okay, I didn't think it was going to end up in the finals run, but I'm not shocked that it's come this far. However,
I hear you.
It's definitely premature. But if you look at their team, they're actually primed for it. In fact, the moves they made before the All-Star break, Crowder and Iggy, were designed to push them over the edge. Like, we're here to actually get to the finals.
I hear you. I see that. I think, and they're kind of bubbling around and thinking if Giannis stays at Milwaukee, they'll probably try and make a run for him.
That's the move everyone's saying.
He's going Silicon Valley, man. He's got a young crowd now. He ain't trying to be in the strip club.
But before we wrap up, I want to go around and get you guys predictions for this series. I'll start with you, Sai. So yeah, what's your prediction, sir?
I want to say Miami in 6, but that's a long shot.
I want to say it. You just laughed that down.
I want to say it, but I can't with a straight face.
Yeah.
I got the Milwaukee prediction right, though. I did say they beat them in 5, so I'm hanging on to that.
But I think with Milwaukee, we saw the blueprint to beat Milwaukee was there all season, isn't it?
I think, you know what? I wish we were bigger at the time, because this podcast fucking got the Milwaukee-Miami series bang on. That is the most right we've collected.
Hey, Mariah, did I not say? I've been saying it for time, bro.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, we saw it. We saw it.
To see it, it was so obvious. It was so obvious the whole season long. I was
it happened as soon as he changed his name from Adebayo to Ante Tocumbo.
Adebayo.
No enough.
He was already in the stars when he went.
Talk about that at all.
He went from there. That was the start, mate. They only gave him a passport when he became an all-star.
It bounced him out to remind him.
So what you saying,
back. He only got that when he was an all-star. So it depends.
If you're changing your name, if you're Eurocentricizing your name at like 10, okay, cool. Man was a fully grown adult. He was a fully
grown man. They were calling him Adebayo in the league.
They were. To Ante.
Wait, hold on. They were calling him Adebayo in the league.
Yeah.
First year.
Then he got his passport and changed it. They
Wow.
gave him a passport and he said, yes.
Oh, wow. And what? Hold on. Was the spelling on his jersey different?
Yeah.
Nasty business. We'll have to do a pod on that. Just that alone.
Never.
To touch on that, remember when I said that I use Jimmy Butler as the like litmus test for these men's character?
Yeah.
He's not coming up with them. Like that's some half-heart bullshit, man. He's not going to the Miami Heat. For me, I do genuinely feel like the Heat have taken this whole bubble situation more seriously than anyone else. I feel like Jimmy Butler's carted out all of them plush mattresses, replacing with some pissy mattresses, taking everybody's food, giving them ramen noodles, taking their soap, all of that. Them man smell like piss and pork. They're winning the shit in 7. That's it. That's what
You've got 6-7 now.
From 6 to 7. Oof.
You don't actually don't believe it. It's cool.
Miami in 7. Listen, Jeff, it's difficult to bet against LeBron, man. Like Sai doesn't want to, innit? But he has to. It's Sai, man. Sai has to come with that, and I respect it. Kay, your face says it all. But can we get a prediction for this series, please, sir?
It's a tricky one because I know what I think will happen, but there's that little bit of doubt where you've heard the X factor of Bam, the X factor of Hero, but it all needs to align. But I'm just gonna bring it back to the fact that, yeah, we were the 1 seed at the time, they were the 5th, whatever, even after their run. So I want to say 4-2 Lakers.
Cool. Yes. What are you saying? What's your prediction, sir?
Well, listen, it hurts to admit it. I'll be honest, because I obviously got my little background up, and I could have had something else, but I thought I'll keep the 17 banners up because I don't think we're going to be the only team to have 17 banners this time next month, sadly.
Come to death row, baby.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not looking good. I think, do you know what? All I've heard every year, everyone, rule of thumb is you need a top 5 player to win in the NBA. You need a top 5 player to win the chip. I think it would be better for basketball and the NBA in general if Miami can take this, because like you've just got crap around 2 superstars and they somehow get it done. I think it would be amazing for Miami to win this, to sort of wake people up to the fact that, look, you don't have to crowbar max contracts in if they don't fit and all that good stuff. But I don't see it happening, to be honest.
You don't believe it?
I don't see it happening. I think basketball needs it, but I think it's Lakers in 6, man, and it pisses me off to say it, but they're just cunts, bruv, and they'll just fucking do it somehow.
Leave basketball to the Euro League, man. This is death row, baby. We're all about the drip. They can run the plays and the high sets and whatever, yeah.
This is America, baby. Did you not see that Trump Biden debate?
Listen, we don't need Showtime Lakers, baby. We don't care about good for basketball.
You see what they're doing in the presidential debate? That's what's happening in the highest office in the land, yeah? This is Showtime, man.
Where do you think the league is going? Jimmy Butler's the face of the league.
You think we'll get
12-year-olds around the country stop
LeBron's glue that's sticking the patch of hair on, like we saw Trump's track on the side of his head.
Yeah, we won't talk on that too much. And last but not least, Jeff, what's your prediction for this series, sir?
I was just listening to Yas and that idealistic nonsense that he was crying. It's America, baby. Bro, I'll be shocked if the Lakers drop this series somehow. I'll be shocked if they drop 2 games. This reminds me a lot, not stylistically, but it reminds me a lot of the first finals I actually remember heavily, which is 2009, Lakers Magic. One team is heavily favored. The other team, it's like, you guys are talented, man, but do you have enough? We're going to watch that series, bro. And it's going to be 4 games where they're going to be tight and 1 blowout. I think 5 games. It'll be one of those series where it could potentially go 6. If it goes 5, every single game in that series will be a dogfest, bar one, like 2009. If you guys remember or watched it, like it was a gentleman's sweep, but 2 of the games went to overtime. One of them, Courtney Lee messed up and a rim at the buzzer, a layup at the buzzer at the rim, which would have won game 2 for the Magic. They won game 3, lost game 4 in overtime, then got blown out in game 5. I can see something similar along those lines there, where Miami, they're dogged, they won't die, even at 3-1, whatever it might be, but it's just too much. It's a step too far. The Lakers are too good. The Lakers are better than you guys are making out as well, especially in the bubble. I've realized they're actually a really good team. Like defensively, they're well coached.
Yeah.
Offensively, they run really good sets. And when their players are hitting shots, they actually look like a really, really well-oiled unit. Like they're not all-time great or anything near that even, but so far as like, yeah, this is
the defense is what's really pushing them over.
Everything.
Defense and when they get those bigs in and they're sweeping everything that's coming off those boards, it gets real long for the guys.
Just stuff like matchups and how they're able to make adjustments to the rotation and what have you. It's like that is a sign of being a good team. Like how deep those, what can you have to sort of like, especially in the playoffs, you can throw these X's and Y, X and O's at different things and what have you. Like they have that there. They have the personnel and the type of personnel to switch it up. They have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Not a lot of teams have that, especially top teams. And I think you guys are probably being a bit disparaging about them.
Keith Morris, bring up Markeith Morris, yeah. 2 hard fouls. They don't know what to do. They're in disarray. It happens every game. It happens every game. 2 hard fouls, little pushing and shoving. All of a sudden,
not even Markeith.
Hairs come loose.
Dwight is the new enforcer of that team. Dwight goes around bullying people. I'm like, yo, Dwight, I don't remember this, boy.
I'm telling you, he's really using them shoulders.
I'm telling you, he's really.
But listen, I respect Dwight, and he's gonna have him and Bam are gonna have some battles. And obviously, Bam is in better shape than
battle for real.
But it's gonna be a beautiful battle between Bam.
I'm gonna be really interested to see that. I can't wait. So we'll be watching tonight. Lads, Yas is already gone. I want to thank Yas for his time, but I guess I'll do that in his absence. Sai, always a pleasure. Kay, good to have you on again, bro. Jeff, you should do this more often, man.
No.
We've seen the watch now.
All right, lads. Nice one. I want to thank